And then one of the most fun things I think that's happening right now in New Jersey is that we are becoming the Hollywood of the East Coast. The state of New Jersey just approved 1888 studios to be built in Bayonne on the old Texaco oil refinery site. It's about 60 acres of property that they're going to be building. They're going to start building it at the first of the year. It should be built by 2026, but they're making not only the movie studios, but there's going to be a walkway, a promenade, retail space. It's bringing thousands of jobs to New Jersey.
Welcome back to the Mortgages Made Easy podcast. I am so delighted today to be joined by Cheryl Darmanin. Cheryl is we've known each other sort of arm's length for about 15 years, and all of a sudden she popped up in my network group. Cheryl is one of the top commercial realtors that I know. She's affiliated with Keller Williams Commercial in New Jersey, but tell us a little bit more about that. What's your basic footprint, and then what else can you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I've been doing commercial real estate for about 8 years. I did do my first deal 10 years ago, but didn't go full time until about 8 years ago. But prior to that, I was in residential for 5 years. And then prior to that, I was in the media business. So I've been doing it for quite some time. We are KW Commercial. We're actually based in Montclair, New Jersey at Keller Williams New Jersey Metro Group is our actual office. We are a boutique firm. We specialize in full service solutions for investors and owner users of commercial real estate. We work in all major asset classes, from retail to industrial, multifamily, office, medical, hospitality, childcare, et cetera. We have clients that are, small mom and pop businesses, or families that own, a small portfolio of real estate, all the way up to national tenants. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. But our job really is to find solutions for any problems that a real estate investor or user may have. So
does that mean you represent buyers and sellers as well as landlords and tenants?
We do. We represent buyers, sellers, and we do tenant and landlord representation. Mm-hmm. I have a team of 8 people, and each of us specializes in a separate asset class. So we'll break that down a little bit as we go along. And then what do you mean
by asset class? Explain that.
So in commercial real estate, you typically specialize in a certain type of property, whether it's industrial or retail or multifamily or mixed use, office. Those are your, high level sort of categories that you specialize in. Mm-hmm. We also do master brokerage, which means that we represent a national tenant here locally in New Jersey. We handle all of their real estate portfolio. We do their leasing, we do their buying and selling of buildings, and all their asset management and acquisitions. Mm-hmm. They are a large company that has a presence all over North America, so the US and Canada.
And you handle their Jersey operations?
Well, we do it all over the country for them. So right now we've done 27 leases in the first half of 2024, all over in Canada, as well as all parts of the US. So we work with the local brokers in those areas, but manage the client centrally here from New Jersey.
So let's talk about commercial real estate. I have the sense that some asset classes are troubled right now, like office space in Manhattan is clearly a troubled kind of asset class. How is the Jersey office market? Is it the same? Is it different?
It's actually interesting because although it is true, and particularly in the New York City area, office vacancies are very high. we have started to see some more activity in suburban office, particularly in medical office space. A lot of companies right now, there was CBRE just did a study the first half of 2024 with businesses and how they are handling the hybrid work situation. And about 50% of companies are asking their employees to go back at least 3 to 4 days per week. And in some cases, companies want to have a satellite office in a suburban area, because it's cheaper than New York City, but also because they have had employees that moved out during COVID, but still want them to be able to be engaged and not have to commute 2 hours each way. So we're starting to see a little bit of that. And prices have increased slightly in the last few months. Asking prices for a Class A space is about $30 a square foot. Class B space is $18 to $20 a square foot. So we are starting to see some momentum there, although vacancies are still very high.
So Class A space, just for people who aren't familiar with the term, that's the full service, beautiful building with a lobby, with an elevator, with all of that stuff. And Class B may not have a doorman, or they may be different, still good space, but not quite as fancy.
Correct. So Class A space has your tenant lounge. It maybe has a gym. They have covered parking in some cases. They have community conference rooms free of charge, so that you can use those conference rooms or training rooms if you're having, a big meeting and you need extra space outside of the space that you lease. Class B is just a step below that, so they may not have all of the amenities that a Class A space would have.
What do you specialize in? What's your?
I specialize in office leasing and sales, as well as medical office space and mixed use multifamily. I have people on my team that specialize in retail. I have people on my team that specialize in childcare. That's a big industry right now. The childcare industry is on fire. We have somebody who specializes in industrial. And so within my team, we have every asset class covered.
So talk about, let's say, a small owner right now who has a property. Maybe they have a office property, or maybe they have a medical office property. Is this a good time to sell?
Office sales are down. If you have a space that works well for medical use, you're seeing more activity. If you have a space that, for example, doesn't have an elevator and you have a lot of stairs, that doesn't always work for medical space. And those are sitting on the market a little bit longer. But we do see some, smaller businesses who are looking to expand their space. Financial services, for example, is a big area that we're seeing a lot of. Accounting and law firms who want to expand their space. That's a lot of the work that we're doing right now.
And what about buyers? Are buyers getting the financing they need? I know that some asset classes, I just had a conversation with one of my lenders, and they said that they're very wary of certain asset classes. How are your buyers doing in the market?
Office definitely is one of those. Interest rates have suppressed offer prices, even though some sellers are expecting some premiums on their property. What we are seeing because of the increased interest rates is that, in order to hit the DSCR of, 1.25, which is, you can speak to that, better than I can since you're in mortgage.
Yeah, so let's explain that term. The DSCR is a coverage ratio, debt service coverage ratio. And the way it works is, let's say you have a property with one tenant, and that tenant pays you $10,000 a month, right? The lender's going to want to, if they're going to lend you for that property, they're going to want to have, let's say, no more than $8,000 of expenses when you take the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, etc. They want to have a little bit of a hedge so that if, let's say, there's a vacancy, the buyer, the owner, the financer will be able to will make the payments because they have the wherewithal. If you have a property that has $10,000 a month of rent and the mortgage plus all the other expenses is $11,000, that means that the building would be operating at a loss, and no lender would want to lend on that unless there was a special reason or relationship that they were doing it. But normally they would not do the loan.
Right. And we are also seeing this, we're seeing this in mixed use multifamily as well, where because of interest rates, investors are now, if they're going to use leverage to buy the property, they are having to put 40 to 50% down instead of, typical 30 to 35, which is what we were seeing, the last couple of years. And so that has put pressure on cap rates. In both office and mixed use multifamily. I mean, there are not a lot of office sales going on right now, and people that have those buildings are typically holding and trying to get them leased because of the high vacancy rates.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the ones that are fully leased, and I have a client in downtown Manhattan, and he's got a building, he has 10 units, they're all leased. Boy, is that valuable today. And he's got clients tenants who've been there for years and aren't moving. Tell us a story, Cheryl. I bet you have some great stories about clients that you've helped, let's say, buy a property. And tell us one or two stories that would give people a sense of what you do and how you help clients. Absolutely.
We are doing a sale right now. It's 2 buildings. They're mixed use, so residential retail buildings side by side. I actually sold the buildings to the owner about 3 years ago. He's making about a 10 or 12% profit on the sale of the businesses.
Amazing.
The buildings. Yeah. So he's a hands-off landlord. He has a property management company that manages the buildings. They have not done a great job. And so we put them on the market. We have a great buyer, but we've had a lot of problems closing because we had leases that were expired in a month to month. We had repairs that had not been made in the buildings. And so when I put them on the market and realized what was happening, we got a new property manager in. We, went unit by unit in both the residential and commercial spaces and made sure, all the tenants were happy. We had everything taken care of. I mean, I've even gone door to door and asked them what in your apartment needs to be repaired. Let me get it on the list. We had to get notarized letters from all the tenants, estoppels as well as SNDA letters. So I hired a notary to come to the building and had everybody meet there at once so that everything could be signed and notarized at the same time to help expedite all the paperwork that the bank needed in order to finalize the sale. We've also, somebody on my team will lease the residential spaces for a client if they so choose. We have somebody from New York City who specializes in that. So we'll make sure all the apartments are leased so that the vacancies are, as low as possible for their income and rent roll, as well as, in the event that they want to sell.
And that's what makes you amazing, because you're just rattling that off, matter of fact, that, so we went back, I went door to door and I checked with the tenants to make sure they're happy. We did this. It's the difference between working with someone who specializes in commercial real estate versus just your average realtor who comes across the deal. It is huge, and it makes a huge difference to what the seller gets, what the buyer gets, whether the buyer is able to conclude the sale, the wisdom that you bring to the table. I mean, I've followed you for years, and it's always evident that you're at the top of your game.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, this particular buyer, I do manage his entire real estate portfolio for him. And, he wants to do a 1031 exchange on these buildings for something in another part of the country. So I'm helping him, with some local brokers on the ground, find another mixed-use multifamily building for him in an area where prices are a little bit more reasonable than in the Northeast. So that is something we can provide as well. I mean, we want to find a solution to a problem that an investor or owner user may have.
And so let's just explain that. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit redundant, but I want our listeners to understand. So Cheryl, if you owned a commercial property that you bought for $5 million and you were selling it today for $8 million, you made a great profit. But you don't want to pay taxes on the $3 million of profit, right? So
Right.
What you do is you do something called a 1031 exchange. And that 1031 refers back to the IRS code. And that's why it's universally known that way. And a 1031 exchange doesn't eliminate the taxes forever. It just defers them. So you take the funds that you get out of the sale of property A, and you apply that to the purchase of another property, thereby deferring, not eliminating, but deferring your capital gains until a later date. Maybe there's a time that it would be better for you to have a capital gain, or whatever you choose. And there are a lot of people who don't understand it thoroughly. And working with someone who understands it and who understands the nuance of 1031 exchange and understands the timetable, because it has a very strict timetable. At the point from the day you sell, you have you have a certain amount of time to identify your target property. Everything has to be done like clockwork. And that's where Cheryl comes in, because she makes sure that her clients don't miss a deadline.
Correct. Yes. And I do work with our attorney and mortgage partners to make sure that we don't miss those deadlines, because there are some strict guidelines. You have to identify a property within 45 days and have to close on it within 180 days. There are some nuances and some workarounds. You can do a reverse 1031. And, if anybody who's interested in that, we can certainly do another podcast about 1031s. There's, it's a couple different ways that you can work that to make sure that you don't have to pay capital gains tax.
Until you're ready to liquidate, until you're ready to retire. Yeah. Cheryl, you have a marvelous family. When we were talking last, you were telling me about your boys. And you have 2 boys. Do I get that? Do I remember that correctly?
Correct. Yes. 2 sons.
Tell us about your family. Tell us about your kids.
So my husband grew up here in New Jersey. He was born in New York, grew up here in New Jersey. I grew up in the South in Georgia and Tennessee and South Carolina, but I've lived up here for 26 years. My sons, I have one son who's 30, who is out of college, out of the house, owns his own house nearby in Somerset County. My other son is 17. He's going to be a senior in high school, and he's a budding chef, is doing quite amazingly. He has a couple of internships this summer at top restaurants in New York City, and we're leaving in a few weeks for Spain, where he's going to be doing an internship at a 3-star Michelin restaurant in San Sebastian. So he's preparing he's doing the senior year, and then he's going to be preparing for college at CIA.
And it's amazing to me that you're saying that with a smile on your face, because obviously you have pride in your son, but you also, so many parents would be worried about their son going into the food business, and you're just saying it matter-of-factly. It's great.
He's very talented. I don't want to go overboard and boastful, but he's incredibly talented, and I think that he's got a great future ahead of him in that industry.
What else are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about travel and hiking and gardening. I love to be outside. growing up in the South, the weather tended to be, warmer longer. I've gotten used to that over the 26 years that I've lived here. But I'm a big outdoors person, and love to travel, particularly overseas.
And you've lived overseas, right?
I have, yes. In my early part of my career, when I was in the media industry, I did work in Europe for a couple of years, and then came back to Atlanta, where I grew up, and then they moved me to New York in the late '90s, which is where I've stayed. So I like it up here. There's a lot of great things about New Jersey and New York and the tri-state area.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. What last thing do you want to leave people with? What information do you want to leave people with?
Well, I will say, we are seeing a surge in the retail sector, in urban retail specifically, despite some recent bankruptcies. So that's great news for train line towns and small. I mean, I think one of the things that makes the Northeast, in particular New Jersey, great is our Main Street, small villages and towns, and we're starting to see a surge in retail there, which is great for all of the residents, particularly personal service restaurants and bars. As some of you may know, New Jersey is changing our liquor license laws to make it more readily available for mom and pop restaurants, as well as some of our distillery and brewery business, which is really growing in New Jersey. So that's something that's very positive. We're seeing vacancy rates down 4% year over year. We've got great, strong cap rates for that. So those are good. And then one of the most fun things I think that's happening right now in New Jersey is that we are becoming the Hollywood of the East Coast. The state of New Jersey just approved 1888 studios to be built in Bayonne on the old Texaco oil refinery site. It's about 60 acres of property that they're going to be building. They're going to start building it at the first of the year. It should be built by 2026, but they're making not only the movie studios, but there's going to be a walkway, a promenade, retail space. It's bringing thousands of jobs to New Jersey, which will be great for our economy. And that is also in addition to the Lionsgate studios that are being built in Newark, and the Netflix studios, which is being built at the Fort Monmouth, the old Army base. So we're really becoming a big movie industry in New Jersey, which will really help our state, with our tax bases and to bring jobs to the area.
And I bet for every one of those studios, there's going to be dozens of ancillary businesses that are going to cater to them. That's also.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just think it's great for our economy and great for our state.
Well, this has been great, Cheryl. Thank you so much. Again, this has been the Mortgages Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Dave Steinberg, and we've been sitting with Cheryl Darmanin, who is a commercial real estate expert working out of Keller Williams in New Jersey. Cheryl's information will be down below, and we'll post her contact information. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Cheryl, for being part of this.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. And, we are happy to help if you're a owner user or an investor. We're here to help solve problems, and, we can assist you in all your real estate and commercial real estate needs. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or would like to discuss anything.
Thank you.